everybody. Good day, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Today, on the day of this recording, it's 6/5, June 5th. I have a friend here, Andy Buksterlin. Real excited about this conversation, y'all. But first, please, some business. Please do make sure to subscribe, comment, and like the channel. I do have the Rumble up. You'll see the handle for the Rumble if you prefer to view on Rumble. And make sure you absolutely do follow Andy here at Andy_Buksterlin, Buksterlin on X. And so today, Andy and me have been talking back and forth a lot about, and I think a lot of people are kind of like being shaken awake with this left right paradigm and kind of realizing it's all just a game. It's a pendulum game where they stoke emotions and they get one side angry at the other, and then they have one side make a mistake and then give the other side power, right, Andy? And it just kind of
Absolutely.
goes back and forth, back and forth. And so we kind of wanted to come here today to have Andy break down what this paradigm is, give some history on it. But first, we want to start on a particular topic, which is the tariffs. So Andy, you want to walk us through that and how that ties into the paradigm?
Well, yeah, absolutely. When it comes to tariffs, one thing that I found is that people really do not know how they work. And what I've also found is that people are slightly, it's not everybody, there's a lot of smart people out there, but they're civically illiterate. So they're pretty much tied to whoever they listen to on the radio. So let's say if Joe Biden installed a bunch of tariffs that were a blanket tax the way Trump did, well, the right wing radio host would tell you exactly what tariffs are, how they work, and people would understand what they are and they would be able to talk about it. Well, in turn, because they're Trump's tariffs, they obfuscate the entire situation to where people don't really know how they work or what they do or what they're even for. So a lot of people are in a situation to where they think that when Trump puts a 50% tariff on goods, Xi Jinping writes him a check and sends it to the U.S. Treasury, and of course we know that's not how it works. So to break down what a tariff is, it is a tax. It's an import duty, but at the end of the day, it's a tax. So to make things simple, if you and I have an import company, and let's say we import 1,000 widgets for a dollar a piece, so we have 1,000 widgets, $1,000. When we go down to the dock to pick up our products, and let's say we've already paid the $1,000 to the company in China that shipped it to us, we have to write a check for $500 that goes straight as an import duty that goes straight to the U.S. Treasury. So here I am. I've got my widgets. Normally, I sell these widgets for $2,000. I paid $1,000 for them. I sell them for $2,000 to the retailer. Now all of a sudden, I'm stuck with an additional $500 in cost that I might not even have the money in my pocket to be able to even pay because I was going to move it over. So that's got to come from somewhere. So in turn, let's say I could eat, say, $100 of it. So I eat $100 of it. I'm still passing that cost off to the retailer, who normally would mark it up, say, to each widget for $4. When they pay two, well, now they're paying $2,400 for it. So that has to come from somewhere, and oftentimes, more than likely not, what's going to end up happening is going to get passed off to the consumer. So at the end of the day, an import duty is a tax, and the consumer at the end of the day is the person that ends up paying for it. That's exactly how they work. And as a matter of fact, the Boston Tea Party, for what we revolted over against King George, was over a tariff. That tea tax was a tariff. So that's exactly how they work, whether Donald Trump's imposing them, whether Joe Biden's imposing them, the red or blue should not matter. At the end of the day, the American consumer is paying a tax to the government at the end of the day via proxy from the importer to the government. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, I understand that. And it's like when we talk about the left and right paradigm, everyone got real upset with like the economy through COVID, which started with, like I mean, no one can deny it. Everything started with warp speed, the lockdowns, they all started under Trump,
Hmm.
right? But then they passed the buck on to Biden's administration. And I have no love for that administration. Let me just flat out say that. But people started getting desperate, if you recall, during those 4 years. On top of having Biden and all the crazy stuff he was doing with Ukraine and what have you, COVID and vaccine mandates and what all that garbage that was going on, people's pockets were getting hurt. So they were desperate for what they thought after 2016 they're going to have the economy president, right? That's what I voted for. That's what I
Hmm.
believed I was going to have if I had Trump again. And he essentially swung public sentiment over, right? Basically getting everyone to believe that if I get these taxes in, as you just broke down, It ain't coming out of the pocket of the American. You know that electronic you buy that's $25. It's not going to $32.99. That's not happening. We're going to get that money from Vietnam. We're going to get it from China. And so people just bought into it, right? Because it was it's tribalism, right, Andy? Where
Well, it's tribalism, and once again, it goes back to civic, where people don't understand how things work. Let's take a look at what a good tariff, or what a tariff could be. A tariff is a tool. So, in other words, it's not just something that you willy nilly just throw out there. So, in our circumstances today, and I'll go back in time a little bit too, but for right now, a good use of a tariff would be a situation where, let's say, there's a new novel technology that shows up. And it's like, hey, we got this new novel technology, and out of this technology, 10, maybe 20 industries are going to spawn from this technology. And this is going to create millions of jobs. Man, this is going to be a great thing. So at that point, the president could go to Congress and say, hey, listen, we've got this new technology. It's going to spur all these technologies. But look, we need to protect the people that's going to invest in this and create these factories and create these jobs and protect this particular product. So I'm asking you to give me a 10-year tariff of, say, even 100, 200, 300, it doesn't matter. Just the idea is to keep foreign competition out for X amount of years. So these people can, invest their money, and then of course they can make money in turn. And then after about a 10-year period, we can start letting the imports in, and of course that'll keep the American companies on their toes, and then the consumer benefits from that competition. So that's the idea behind a good tariff. But in a situation like we have today, there is no American alternative. So another idea could be, well, hey, look, I've got 3 TVs that are made in America, and I got 7 that are made in Japan. So, hey, let's put a tariff on the Japanese products. That way people will buy the American product. So you could say that. But in this day and age, there is no American product. So when you go to Walmart to buy a coffee maker, you're just paying a tax, because there is no American alternative or a cheaper alternative, and you're just out your money.
Oh, I see. That's interesting. I didn't know about that. I'm not very, wise on tariffs. Wow, that's interesting. So it's kind of like in a well-intended way, if it in a truly well-intended way for the American public, or for the country itself, you impose that to essentially allow American industry to thrive, like to have an opportunity to thrive against competition that's foreign to us, right? Is that what you're saying?
Under the right circumstances,
Okay.
yes. So under
Okay.
like a new novel technology, like I described. So
Okay.
that would, because what's going to end up happening is, if you don't protect those industries, you're not going to build up your industry in your own country, because you're just going to get flooded with cheap Chinese stuff right off the bat, and American capital is going to be like, why should I invest in a factory here in America? Because I can't undercut the competition. There's no way I can do it.
Right. And so if you can go into a little bit more, I don't know if you like to, but like if we can go a little bit more into the tariffs. Like, so everyone was gung ho about the tariffs, and then in the last like 3 to 4 months, maybe even a little bit longer, there's been all this talk of like, well, we're gonna, we as America, we're acquiescing on those tariffs. It was like Trump would get mad, you're at 100%, you're at 50%, you're at 25%. And now we're rolling back all these tariffs. What does that mean what does that mean for us as Americans? What does that mean as a whole? That now we're rolling back what we put in. Like, has there been damage already done to the? I mean, to the American public?
Obviously, I mean, there's been damage done because people have had to pay more for goods. So at the end of the day, the U.S. Treasury collected all this money. Now, in turn, they're going to have to pay it back to the retailers, and that's what's really bad for the consumer. Is at the end of the day, we ended up paying more for our products, essentially a tax, and there's no refund for us. So the president of the United States took it upon himself to put 30%, 50%, 152, whatever percent he was putting on these products. He took it upon himself, which is illegal. It's up to Congress to enact tariffs, period. So there's another example of executive overreach, which falls back to the left-right paradigm. Because if this was Biden, the Republicans would be like, man, Biden's taxing us, man. He can't do that. The Congress is supposed to do that. But because it's the right-wing guy, all of a sudden we don't know what tariffs are. Oh, we don't know, man, tariffs, man. We're going to be manufacturing plants all over America, and my son's going to go to the manufacturing plant, work for 30 years and retire. And of course, that's never been what was going to happen. So, but yeah, we have suffered as a result. And on top of inflation, we've had to pay additional taxes. And as a benefit to Howard Lutnick, his son, I don't know if you're aware of this, his son he runs his old company. And I'm trying to think of the name of it, and it's escaping me right now. And I absolutely hate this. Kantner, I think, and Associates.
Cantor Fitzgerald.
Cantor Fitzgerald. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And they went okay, first of all, the president, he goes and he puts on these illegal tariffs, which are not going to stand up in court. I knew that from the very beginning. It's like, no way the court's just going to shoot this down. They go behind the scenes and they start offering 30 cents on the dollar purchases on tariff refunds. So they're basically shorting that the court is going to rule against the president. So in other words, if you paid $10,000 in tariffs, and I say, hey man, I'm going to give you $3,000 right now, but you have to sign your rights away to a refund to me. So you take the $3,000,
Wow.
and now that the courts have struck it down, guess what? I'm going to get a $10,000 check. So I make $7,000. I make almost 2.5 times my money, all because I had that grinning insider information.
That makes me so mad.
Yeah, I mean, that's just.
So Cantor Fitzgerald made backroom deals essentially, where now they're going to get to on all the reimbursements that we've been hearing about on the news. They're going to rake that in.
Well, not all of it, but people that
Okay.
went for it. So yeah, so they went and actively solicited companies in order to, yeah. So yeah, it's basically shorten it. So yeah, I'm gonna go, yeah, like I said, I'll give you $3,000 for your 10,000 worth of tariffs, and if it's overturned, you have to sign your rights away to me. So yeah, in other words, they got their $3,000, they walked away, and then Cantor Fitzgerald gets the 10,000.
Wow.
With a net gain of $7,000. Of course, we're talking millions, obviously, you know, maybe even a billion. Who knows what it is?
So like what's the situation now? You know, like what's the next step? What's happening tomorrow with tariffs? I mean, now that all the rigmarole is basically coming to a head where it's like, okay, yeah, reimbursements are on the way. Like outside of, you know, on the retail level hitting the consumer pocket, are there any other repercussions or consequences that the American citizen is going to have to deal with?
Yeah, that's a really good question. If you're talking about what their plans are from the administration, the president has enacted, they found some kind of legislation to where the president can impose tariffs over, I think it's like a 6-month time limit on his own. And it's 6 months hard, so he can't just continuously re-invoke it. So he would be cut off at that point. So from my understanding, they are going to utilize that in certain areas. I don't think it's going to be blanket the way it was. I know I've noticed a price difference in certain things like coffee. In my experience, I don't know about other people. Our coffees come down about 20% that we drink, but so far as other repercussions, there really aren't, because there's not going to be any. There's no manufacturing that was lost as a result. There was no gains there. So basically, we just really got raped. Now the raping's just pretty much over, and we're just left holding the bag. And you know, there's a lot of people that can't afford this, that, or the other as a result of it. I mean, it's been a very big financial strain on it. We're fortunate. I mean, we're not rich, but we're not. You know, we're not struggling. You know what I mean?
No, I understand that.
So that's, but I can see it in other people, and I definitely have empathy for it. You know what I mean? I mean, I manage my. As a matter of fact, I make a game out of buying stuff, so I know the prices of everything in 3 different places just because I find it fun. But I also want to get the best deal. I'm just like that. So, but I can see it when I'm sitting here balancing the budget. I'm like, man, goodness gracious, look how much more I'm putting out for this, or I'm putting out for that. So I can imagine if you're a young family, you know, struggling there, and you got to go out to the store and you got to buy this and you got to buy that. It's like, honey, we're going to have to cut out coffee. We can't afford it. Or we're going to have to cut out this. We're going to have to cut out that. It's just, I think it's been a big psychological blow to the American people.
I agree. And it's like, you know, if you know, in a capitalist society, I mean, you can argue if we're in one anymore. But
if we've ever been in one,
I mean, fair enough, you know.
Yeah, well, free market at least. Yeah.
Yeah, free market. But it's like, okay, so they get a justification to increase their prices. They're not going to bring the prices down. Prices just keep going up, you know.
Yeah, you're going to, well, you would have to have a retail or a conspiracy. I mean, the good thing about that kind of thing, well, I mean, you might amongst Walmart and, well, number one, you don't have as many retailers as you used to. You know, Walmart's pretty much taken everything over.
Walmart and Target, basically. Right?
Yeah, so they might hold out a little bit, but there's still enough competition out there to where prices will be driven down. So I don't think it's going to be a play where the retailers are just going to just put us in a headlock and just beat us over the head with their higher prices, because there's still enough competition, which that's how a free market works, you know, obviously.
Yeah.
And so that's a good thing. But so far as being taxed by the government, you know, that's really what happened to us. And as far as tariffs ever bringing anything back, so let's say his argument to begin with is, you know, I'm going to put these tariffs on China, and they're just going to start moving their factories over here, and people are just going to be working, and cars going to be being made, and it's just going to be everybody's going to get a job. Well, that was a complete lie from the very beginning. And imagine this: imagine you and me, or we have a a manufacturing plant in China. So Trump puts the tariffs on, and we're like, man, hey, man, we can move to America and we can go over and build our plants over there and blah, 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 blah. So let's say by the time we invested a little bit of capital, we started putting our stuff on the boats. Well, the tariffs were already over with. So I would have been out all that money, or in turn, an American manufacturer that said, "Hey, I'm gonna start making toasters. Hey, I can make a toaster at a profit." So I, invest $1 million, start building a plant, and by the time I got the ground busted, I'm out my $1 million. See, and that's why Congress is there to appropriate that kind of thing and give you the scenario that I went over earlier, where it's a 10-year tariff. That way, you have a solid legal basis that you can invest that money and expect a profit in return.
No, it makes sense. I appreciate that, Andy. I know. Well, tariff. I need to personally like read more on tariffs. This just basically, I don't know, maybe for the viewer, maybe some viewers, maybe some people know more or know as much as you do. But I need to go research this because I didn't really pay much attention to it because I was a lemming for a while, and I was just like, "This is good. This is good. We're gonna get money." But then when I kind of started looking into it and not seeing any real net benefit, and then with your breakdown, it's all a show, man. It's a clown show. But
we got plenty of time. Let's rewind. This will be a good exercise. So you say that you kind of bought into it. You really didn't know anything about tariffs, and
right.
that would be well. That's fine. So let me ask you this: what question would you have? What was your expectations of tariffs when Trump first said we're going to put 50% tariff on everything? What was your expectation?
I guess in my ignorance, and I'm not afraid to admit that.
No, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in my ignorance, I just kind of believe that okay, cool, we're gonna like the government's gonna bring in extra money and they're gonna put it towards paying down the debt. I bought into the mainstream, the mainstream narrative. I did, 100%. Like that's what they were telling us all. We're gonna pay down the debt. We're gonna use this to pay down the debt. The debt's gonna go down. Golden age. I totally just bought into it. I didn't really. I've always been a skeptic of the government. Okay, like
that's good.
But
serve you well, man.
But I kind of fell into the trap of many people, and I think a lot of people are waking up. A lot of people are quadrupling down behind it. But in 2015, with coming down the escalator, I'm like, I don't know about this. This is ridiculous. We got this like WWF, like Vince McMahon, like. The Apprentice, like, are we kidding? Are we serious? And like my gut, my intuition right there was right.
Yeah, it was 100%.
But then the desperation in the mind of like, again, left right paradigm, right? Because I've been a registered Republican since I could vote, since I was 18. But I was just like, all right, man, we have no choice. We just went through 4 years of Obama, and I didn't like a lot of Obama with like all the racial stuff, all that with George Zimmerman, all that. Trayvon Martin. I'm like, what are we doing here? Right. Like maybe this guy will be good. He's a charismatic dude. He can bring people together, etc. I bought into it, and then when he was running, right. When he was like doing the debates, when he dunked on Jeb Bush, I'm like, okay. Like, and then he dunked on Hillary when it was like the Democrat, the Democrat.
Oh yeah. Debate.
I was like, man, this guy's talking truth.
Yeah.
And I bought into it. And then fast forward to 2020, at that point, I'm like, I don't know anymore. I'm like, I'm still in the paradigm. I'm still like, I got to rep my tribe, right? I got to still I'm a Republican. I still have to vote for Trump, right? And then you fast forward past Biden, and then it was like existential, right, Andy? Like,
sure. No, I buy the whole thing. I buy exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. So fast forward.
I understand it, at least. I get it.
No, I mean, like, you're more learned than me on this. You've got a couple years on me of life,
Well, yeah, but there's no look. I got fooled by Kennedy, and we can maybe get into that in a moment. But to address the whole Trump thing, the only thing that saved me from Trump was being older and being through this rodeo before. And what caught me on to him is this fool shows up, and the first time I even seen him on TV, running as a candidate, he's standing there at the border, and it's not what he was saying, it was how he was saying it. I was like, this guy is going to demonize the populist movement. And I got to listening to him, and I was like, wait a second. This cat ran against Pat Buchanan, who is the real deal. Pat Buchanan was the real
Oh
deal.
yeah, he was.
So they send Roger Stone and Trump into the Reform Party to run against Pat Buchanan. And all Trump does is call Pat. He goes on every show on the planet to call Pat an anti-Semite, bag on his policies. He just don't know what he's doing. He's just an anti-Semite. I think he's a Nazi of some kind. Just all this is foolishness. So when he shows up 15 years later with this basically a WWE, I mean a dumbed down version of Pat Buchanan, I'm like, this guy's a fraud. This is absolute crap. He's a Judas goat. And his first 2 years in office was kind of like it was kind of like a rope-a-dope. Looking back, it appeared to be a rope-a-dope, getting people, just on board, just letting things happen until COVID. It was all about his entire first administration was getting to that point where COVID struck. And he was just basically a generic run-of-the-mill, just, okey doke Republican, didn't do anything bad, didn't do anything wrong. Of course, you had the whole culture war swirling around him or whatever. But when COVID hit, I think that's really when signing warp speeds when he really showed his stripes, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, that for me, that was the same for me. That was when my discernment really flipped on. The blinders came off, and I kind of like came out of the stupor, if you will. I'm like, what the f is going on here? I'm like, 2 week 6 foot distancing, 2 week shutdown. Luckily, I work in an industry where we had CISPA. We had the ability to continue working through CISPA, right? So because we were working on I'll just say public utility, and I was fortunate enough I wasn't impacted like many Americans were, like the small business owner, the brick and mortar business owner that had to shut down, lost everything, And so when all that happened, I'm like, this isn't what I voted for, And then I'm watching Sweden, this hyper socialist country. I think it was Sweden. You might correct me if I'm wrong, but of all the nations in the world, they're like, we're going with herd immunity.
It was Sweden. You are correct, and they did the right thing.
Yeah, and I'm like, what are we doing? And then Fauci and all. Anyway, we can go down that rabbit hole, but yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are still in the paradigm, right? And I don't know if we can shift gears here and maybe talk. I know you wanted to talk a little about, a little bit about immigration. I'll just give you the floor on what you want to talk about on that topic and how it is associated with the current left-right paradigm we're trying to break down.
Well, sure. Yeah. Well, I wanted to use immigration. I mean, I don't want to really debate immigration. I think we both stand on the same side of that issue. I'm against illegal immigration, period, in the story. I'm all for someone who has skills and wants to bring their family, come over here and be a productive part of America, go through the naturalization process, which, as a matter of fact, my wife's mom, it was a first generation immigrant. She came here, went through the process, and did the right thing. And she was happy and proud to be an American. Yeah. But so far as the left right paradigm for the younger people, if you might be listening, I know people my age and older will remember this, especially if they're outside the left right paradigm, is that the immigration situation or issue has completely flipped from right to left. Yeah. So starting from the Reagan amnesty through Bush 2, the right wing were basically pro illegal immigration to a certain point. Maybe the rank and file wasn't, but the politicians and especially the leadership were all about, we need people, they do jobs that we won't do. Or, we need people to do this or do that, or they're coming over here for a better life, blah, 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 blah. And it's basically the exact same talking points you started hearing from the left roughly around 2016. So the original, they took our jobs people were the left wing and the Democrats. So you had the Democrats were against illegal immigration for the most part, the leadership maybe not so much, but definitely the rank and file, where all the Republicans had bought into this freewheeling globalist open border, we're just going to be big rock stars and we're going to invest in all these foreign countries here with globalization, and we're all just going to sit back and collect big fat checks off of our investments. And they even had your just regular run-of-the-mill UPS union Republican believing that's what was going to happen back in those days. And then, of course, your reality started setting in. So what ended up happening was in the grassroots where you saw, maybe you probably remember the Tea Party, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you recall the Tea Party?
Absolutely.
So you started getting this grumbling about illegal immigration within that section of the Republican, rank and file. So they're like, well, hey, man, we got to do something about this. They're trying to put Ron Paul in. We're not going to let Ron Paul under any circumstances whatsoever. Yeah, so we've got to do something with these people. We have to do something with them. So of course they bring Glenn back in to kind of commandeer the Tea Party and steer them back into the Republican Party. But by the time 2015 rolled around and 8 years of Obama, people were grumbling about this or grumbling about that, and all of a sudden, hey, we need a savior. So here comes Warp Speed Don, who could have easily, I swear he could have easily won the 2004 Democratic nomination with the exact same platform. Easily won and beat Bush. It would have been overwhelming. There would have been no stopping it. So he shows up and he's at the wall, and all of a sudden he's talking immigration. Well, the left has to, at that point, they had to switch sides on the issue. They had no choice, because the last thing they ever want us to do, if you've got people on the right in the rank and file are like, hey, you've got to do something about illegal immigration, and you have the left doing it, well, that creates a consensus among the people, and they cannot, under any circumstances, have a consensus amongst the people. You must be divided left and right. You must be on this side. They must be on that side, and we'll bounce you two together and come up with our phoenix out of the ashes when it's done. So, so that's why I wanted to bring up immigration as an example of how they can play this paradigm and not only play it and bounce us against each other, they can completely flip flop on an issue within the space of just a few years.
Yeah, I mean, if I can comment on that as well,
Yeah.
it's like, so from my perspective as a Trump voter, I was gung ho about getting rid of let's get illegals out of the country. Especially after the flooding of illegals that
Sure.
came in over the border, wide open borders. I'm like, I was all about it, and then he gets inaugurated, and then like a snap of the fingers, right, like a hypnosis snap. It was, well, we still need to have H-1Bs, and we need 400,000 Chinese students. And I'm like, what are we doing here? So like they just switched gears from like, we're going to go after all these people, all these illegals. And I learned a little bit about that as well. I have a friend, I won't disclose, but he's in immigration law, and he's the one that kind of started waking me up in March of last year, because I was all about it. I was all about, get him out. I want him out. I don't want him here. Just lemming. And he's like, hey, do you have any context in who they're going after? I'm like, dude, I live in, I'm in Colorado. They're going to get all the gangs and the criminals. It's going to be great. He's like, no, man, I have clients that are coming to me where they're going into the schools, into the elementary schools, and basically terrorizing principals and trying to interview children.
Yeah, I didn't believe that when I first heard it until I found out it was true.
I mean, and then I didn't believe it either until a person I know that's an immigration attorney is telling me, no, dude. And he's a hardcore, he's Republican. He didn't vote for Trump until until 24. And to his chagrin, just several months later, he ended up regretting that decision, because he fell into that existential, it's, the right versus the left commies. Like, we have, no matter what, we have to rally behind this guy, big tent coalition. We got to vote for him. And when he broke that, when he told me about several stories in his own personal experience, I was in absolute shock. And it's the antithesis of what I believe what would be happening, because we were told we're going to go after the cartels, we're going to do this. We haven't done any of it. It was all a ploy in my mind. It was all just gaslighting and getting people to believe a fantasy.
Well, yeah, but there was more to it than that. In regard to what they're really doing is turning ICE into a domestic occupational force. So by going into that school and going in there and sweating down the principal, yanking kids out of school, you're training those ICE enforcement officers to do exactly that. I mean, think of the training that they're going through when they're doing that. So instead of, I'm going out here and I'm going to get Tren de la Agua, or I'm going to go get this, 100 Somalis just sitting on the side of the road, eating off food stamps, or, whatever they scare you with, which that is true. I mean, I guess that's happening. No, They're sending these people into schools. They're getting them, training them to go in and snatch kids. And in turn, they're training the population. The feds, ski masked, jackbooted thugs come into your school, sweat you down in your office, and yank kids out of school. Now, I do, in those instances, I do have sympathy. I don't want them going in and grabbing 13-year-old Jose up out the school. I don't even want that. And I want immigration. I want illegal status taken out, but not like that. So you're training the ICE people to do that kind of thing, and you're training the population to put up with it.
Yeah, it's impressive to me. And then people keep doubling, tripling down when they see it. It's I remember was it in February where I forget his name. I think I have his name right. It was Alex Preddy, the guy,
Oh, the
the nerd.
gentleman the guy that got shot. Yeah, that was awful.
I mean, I couldn't believe. And then it was one of the very first. Like when I started this podcast, the first episodes they were just basically like solo vlogs, right? I was just like basically just bitching. Like every week, I just like take current events and just complain about what's going on in this country. And I remember that I got a very limited reaction, but the reaction I got was vitriol against me for having the opinion that I thought that Alex Preddy was unjustly murdered. I'm like,
yeah, oh, ditto, without a doubt.
and I'm like, guys, like you're allowing precedents to be set. And people are always like, well, I've done nothing wrong, so I have nothing to worry about
That,
until you
yeah,
do, until you
yeah.
do. And the fact that people just accepted that or defended that or were like actually being, adamantly fighting against people that were just raising the flag saying, whoa, hey guys, like, clearly there's video that the gun was either on the ground or taken by one of those ICE officers. He was not armed. He did not have it in hand. And he took slugs in the back of the head. I mean, like, are we not going to question this? Are we not going
Well,
to?
they executed him.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that wasn't even just an accident or oop. That was a public on film execution, and they had targeted him too. Apparently, that guy was he was obviously some type of serious activist,
Yeah,
and I
he
wouldn't.
was a vigilant person, and he was an
Yeah,
antagonistic individual. I saw, and I'm not trying to defend him. God rest his soul. I'm not. I don't like speaking poorly of the dead. I don't care who you are, but I saw the other video where he kicked out a tail light. I think there's a video of him like
well,
spitting
then
at
we
a
need to ask ourselves, why didn't they take him into custody at that point?
exactly, and that was the questions I was. Those were the questions I was asking Andy, and
Well,
then
here's
they would just
mm,
be ignored. No, you're a Democrat now. It's like I'm a human being, dude. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican, but that's the tribes, right? Like you
yeah.
have to defend your. Yeah, that's what I put like in the, the comment for promoting our episode together. Yankees versus Mets. That's all it is.
Is blue versus red, and I got a good one for you. One of the, neither one of us have control over the algorithm, so we have no idea. You can post some kind of junk and it'll get a bunch of views, or you'll post something really good and it don't. But one of
Right.
the best posts I ever had that actually got a few million views and just thousands of comments was I put a picture of Freddie laying there being shot, and then Ashley Babbitt. And I put them side by side, and I'm like, well, either you cannot be for one of them getting shot and one of them not. And
Mhm.
man, the left right people came out of all. I mean, it was just everywhere, and the right were just the vitriol. You can't compare the two. You're a communist. Oh, you're a Democrat. You're this. You're that. But it's true.
Yeah,
I mean, it absolutely is true. So
it's
that's your fellow
objectively true.
American. But one thing that both of these situations have proved is there's lunatics on the left and there's lunatics on the right that both want to have jackbooted thugs grab, snatch, and cage their fellow American extrajudiciously. So in other words, there's Republicans that are fine if the government goes out and just starts just rounding up leftists, they're okay with it. And then on the other hand, there's leftists that would be just fine if the government went and started rounding up MAGA. No Miranda rights, no nothing, just snatch and grab, middle of the night, stick you in a gulag. So the
You remember
government
what they did
here,
during J6? They were worshiping it. The left.
well, yeah. So there you go. So you have the left and the right both agree they want their fellow American locked up in a cage without due process. So the government hears them and they're going to oblige. Unfortunately, that they're going to lock us all up. And that's a perfect example of the left-right paradigm, that strategy of tension, to where you can push and pull and push and pull until you get your synthesis. And the synthesis is going to be a police state. So now we have armed goons driving around, ski masks. We don't even know if they're Americans. They could be Israelis. They could be Ukrainians, whatever they are. And they're just driving around your neighborhood, and you're used to seeing just them jump out, snatch and grab somebody up off the street and drive away with them.
Yeah, it's insane.
So what's
It's
going to
actually,
happen when all of a sudden they decide, well, Amen, man, we have to go snatch and grab him and nobody's going to notice. They're just going to be like, well, there's
yeah,
another guy just got snatched and grabbed.
you'll be black bag like V for Vendetta.
Yeah,
And
black bagged.
no one's gonna even know that you're gone, and no one's gonna be brave enough to ask where are you? No one's
Exactly.
gonna do it
Well,
because
they'll
it's
just
gonna
assume
be
that you must have done something wrong. Well, he must have done something. Well, I always knew there was something wrong with that guy. I
it's
don't know what it was, but I knew it was. So they
yeah,
got him.
exactly. There's that too. Yeah. I knew something was wrong with him. He must have been a terrorist.
Yeah, he was a terrorist. Yeah, absolutely, he was. He had to been. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And yeah, so like on the subject of like this, jackbooted thugs, um, hostile bullies, killers. Um, I wanted to get into the topic of this current situation with the NDAA, if you don't mind, Andy, if we could
Oh,
pivot
I'm
to
I'm
that.
down.
And so I've been really upset the past 2 months. Started with like initially the conversation was NDAA with 702 FISA, right?
Right.
And then it was I'm gonna say her name. I don't give a shit. Excuse my language, but Anna Paulina Luna was driving me absolutely insane. Like it was April into May. Like I just couldn't help but comment against her. Like, what are you doing? And she was just like, we won't vote for the Save Act unless 702 is included. You remember that? When she
Yes,
was
I
saying
do.
stuff like, I'm
Yeah,
like, what in the
she's a
hell is
snake,
this?
man. She is Anna Paulina Luna is an absolute snake, man, and she's very devious too and
Oh, she
untrustworthy, and
is.
she
She's disgusting.
lies. Yeah,
She's
she really
disgusting. She's a
is.
stripper. She's a former stripper. She knows how to snake her way into a guy's pocket. Obviously, she could snake her way into Congress, and she could snake her way into people's minds to try to convince them and coax them into believing things. So we start with 702 and the Save Act bundle, right? They're trying to bundle that. I
Sure.
actually lost track of. I have no idea what happened with 702. And now you did they? By the way, did they get that through?
702 is the warrantless wiretapping, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well that has been a part of the NDAA since Obama.
Right. So
Actually,
that is
no,
still on the
that's
table.
been a part of it no, way longer than that. No, that goes back to 2007 under Bush.
No, I know, but they wanted the renewal of it, right? It's coming up on
Yeah.
that sunset, and so
Hmm.
they were trying to push that provision to get passed. My question, I guess, is well. Before I ask my question, I'll pull it into this if you don't mind, Andy. So
Sure.
now we have the NDAA, the literal like suspension of our Fourth Amendment, like freezes it completely, essentially.
Mm.
Um, Now we have this new section 224, which is extremely terrifying to me. I mean, we're talking about fusion and integration of two foreign militaries, our military and a military that arguably has committed, ethnic cleansing and just mass slaughter of people. It's currently carpet bombing residential, homes in Lebanon. Um, we literally just had a armed services committee vote yesterday, and I believe of all, and again, left right paradigm. You think there'd be a Republican up there saying, "Hey, we need to strike this provision out. This section needs to be struck out." It was Democrat. It was Ro Khanna who failed in his call to have it struck. So my question to you is, I guess, what are your thoughts on 224? Can you speak a little bit about 702 as well? I'm assuming that with this, and now that it's going to go to the House floor for a vote, we have these two things that are one brand new and one that's going to be greenlit again, not allowed to be sunset. Do you have any comments on that?
Well, yeah, I would like to address 702 first because it's been
Sure.
around the longest. And just to give you a little bit of background, the way it ended up coming about is when they passed the Patriot Act, they were supposed to have this. I'm trying to remember what the name they gave for it, but it was basically a review panel to be able to do warrantless wiretaps, but was only on non-American citizens. And but you still had to go through this panel, and I don't know why the name's escaping me, and all this good stuff. What finally came out after I guess this was way past the election. This was not far before the midterms of 2006. That the Bush administration was actually utilizing to spy on all of Americans. Period. End of story. Without warrant, and they were doing the best they can with what they had back then. They had these metadata. It was slow, but they were monitoring people's phone calls without warrant. No, nothing, just doing it all over the place. And by that time, you already had DHS fusion centers, things like that. So I mean, it was pretty. I mean, it was very shocking back then. Today, it's just like, well, of course they're. That's what happens over a period of a few years. Well, of course they're listening to my phone call. People just know it. You just become. It's just. This is just what happens. Well, back then it was shocking and it was an impeachable offense. So when the Democrats ran in 2006, they were running on impeaching Bush for warrantless wiretap. So of course, they end up winning the midterms. And of course, the first thing Nancy Pelosi says is, let's all hold hands and heal and look forward, the usual Democrat stuff. And I knew right then, I was like, well, nothing's going to get done now. Well, the very first thing she does is they introduce legislation to not only legalize this type of warrantless wiretap, but to give retro immunity to Bush, and it passed right through, and the president signed it. So that was the death knell for the Fourth Amendment, was right there. And 702 is just carried on, and it's carried on, and it's carried on, and also, but it's carried on with a lot broader technology and more intrusive technology as time has went on. So from 2007, when we had the brick phone, I don't know what you had in 2007. I guess maybe a BlackBerry, to your iPhone 14 today. That's what they're doing. So they're utilizing all the technology, the Wi-Fi in your house. They're using the cell phones. They're using your car. If you have a new car, it's monitoring you 24/7. Every time you get in there, it knows everything that you're doing, and it's all legal per 702. And to swing to 224, well, now it makes it even worse, because guess what? Even if the Israelis are already doing it, which I think they are, I think they're already in DHS. DHS is in their X accounts in Israel, right? And we also have a secondhand account of Donald Rumsfeld saying back in the 2000s that, hell, I don't run my building, Mossad does. So we have all these accounts, and we know that they're doing it, but now it's going to be on paper, and now it's going to be legal, and now they can be open with it. And if you sit there and you read the subsections, it gets really scary. Not only the technology that they're going to be merging, like artificial intelligence, quantum, machine learning, automated assist, direct energy weapon, Jewish space lasers, and advanced sensing and things like that. The crux of it is on page 42, section 8. This is subsection 8. Network integration. Well, let me repeat that. Network integration, data fusion, and contested logistics. So if you read the entire thing as a whole, that is the linchpin for the whole thing. So what's going to end up happening is, regardless, you might not have an Israeli general in charge of, a battalion, or, well, I guess a flag officer would be, or say an Israeli captain in charge of a battalion. Basically what they're going to have is, you're going to have dudes at a computer somewhere directing troops, directing weapons, and doing basically anything that they want. And they're going to have all access to all of our technology and the threat fusion centers, and anything that ICE is doing, anything that DHS is doing, Israel's going to have it.
That's insane. Doesn't it also formalize their ability to actually directly interact and work directly and engage the MIC?
Well,
I've heard that. I don't know if that's true. That's why I'm asking you. I don't know if you have any
from what can you rephrase the question?
So basically, what I there's a lot of noise out there, right?
Right.
And
yeah, there's a lot of noise out there.
Yeah, and I'm trying my best to be objective, but I've seen posts, and at first it was fusing of the militaries, and
that's not true.
Not true.
Right.
Then I've also heard it's basically formalizing, codifying backroom deals where Lockheed, RTX, Grumman can essentially directly engage with Israel. There's no more partition where they would have to go through, they have to be liaised through, American asset for those relationships, that it breaks that partition down. I don't know if you have context on that or not.
I can tell you from personal experience that liaison is not even there when it comes to that kind of thing. So Raytheon has an Israeli division, period. And I can tell you from personal experience, when I got out of the Marine Corps, I worked for a couple of aerospace companies, and the smaller aerospace company that I worked with after Loral moved out of California, we directly dealt with the Saudis and sold them. It was obviously older stuff that we manufactured, but we dealt directly with them. There's really the only liaison was the security guy, and of course he was in charge of security clearances and things like that. But it wasn't nobody from the Pentagon or anything like that coming down, and it was very easy. It was just basically, and this was back in the 90s, and we were just basically slinging them product. We just have a sheik come down, sitting there, give them dog and pony show, and the sheik gets out his check and buys it.
It's insane.
So
it's just now they're just like doing it all in the open. They're like the hubris of this, right? It's like, are we truly an occupied nation? And then people are still just like, I'm Democrat, I'm Republican. Like, they're still living in this fake world. I mean, like, they're
what's safe, isn't it?
What's that?
Isn't it safe to be in a left-right paradigm, though?
I guess it is.
Yeah, because you have your enemy. It's your fellow American. He wears a blue shirt, and I hate him. And these red shirt
Ridiculous.
guys are going to save me. And my whole life would be great if we could get rid of all the blue shirts. And then and vice versa. So I wear a blue shirt. I hate the red guy. He's my clear enemy. And the left people are going to save me, because I really don't want to think about Bill Gates and all the people, you know, Klaus Schwab and all that, because that's scary. I mean, that's really scary. So that's a conspiracy theory. So I'll stay here in my left-right paradigm where everything's fine. If I just vote harder, my life will change and our government will get better. And they kind of really play that up too.
They really do. And it's just like this, it's like this just escalation that keeps happening. It keeps getting more intense. It gets more visible, right? And
that's deliberate.
I know, because they've also simultaneously start making people feel hopeless, right? With, you know, all the scares of like, oh, the gas prices, you know, there's going to be no fertilizer, which ain't a lie. I mean, I've already seen reports where some farmers are coming out and saying that their yields for, you know, their yields of crops for next spring are, it's like danger zone right now. So what people don't understand with what all this stuff, and I'm not trying to pivot to the war, but I'm just using it as as an example of the context of the existential fear they're putting on everybody, is that people just choose not to look away. You have farmers telling you, dude, I might not be able to grow, like I may not have yields next spring to feed you. And no one's thinking about anything beyond a day from now. So all this stuff is just ramping up and getting worse and worse. We have foreign governments, essentially, as you just said. I mean, I've never served, and God bless you for your service. But it's been going on since the 90s. You know, I'm not privy to that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, not to that, to the scale that it is, but I would suggest that that this section 224 of the NDAA is just, once again, is a codification of what's already been going on. So yeah, they're making it public, because I mean, how can you eventually, if you've got some secret cabal and you're moving towards a goal of a new world order or whatever it's going to be, eventually you're going to become visible.
Yeah.
So if you're, and there's no way to hide yourself anymore, and you got one way of doing it, you can either just walk out into the open, or you can come out guns a-blazing. And this is a guns a-blazing. So they're coming out, they're letting you know, yeah, we're in charge. Yeah, we own your government. We have your president blackmailed. Hey, here's Speaker Johnson. We own him. We own this guy. We own Ted Cruz, and we're going to make him go out and tell you that he does. So he gets on global YouTube with Tucker Carlson and completely just makes a fool of himself, telling you how much he's the Israeli senator from the state of Texas, and he's Israel first. I mean, imagine the humiliation ritual of that. But he's so ensconced in it that he loves it. He loves getting out and saying it. So it's a humiliation ritual for us, but it's all the idea is a demoralizing effect as well, is to get you to think, well, this is inevitable. There's nothing we can do about it, and it's what you do to your enemy. You want to demoralize them, and we are definitely the enemy. It's us. It's not a red shirt American or a blue shirt American, a white American, a black American, a gay American, Mexican. It doesn't matter what you are. You are the enemy, because it's a big club. You ain't in it, and it's us against them, and ain't none of us one of them.
100%.
Period. End of story. I mean, that's just what it is.
No, that's true. And, you know, it kind of like going back on, like, you know, what you brought up, what you witnessed in the 90s. Let's take it back to like 88, you know, and the start of the conversations of like a North American Union, or like what Bush Sr. would say, a new world order. Remember that, Steve? And so we have this conversation that has started with the right, with Republicans, with the NAU, North American Union, and talking about basically building a you know, an what I don't know what you call it, interstate or international corridor for transport and commerce, where they're going to unify Canada, U.S., and Mexico. And then you had a Democrat continue to push that forward, and then you go all the way up to Trump, right, in 15 going into 16, saying enough's enough of this, right? Everyone calm down, go back to sleep. Here's your pillow. And what has been going on, Andy? You want to brief us a little bit about, since Trump's taken office, about Canada, Greenland?
Yeah, we can definitely get into that. I do want to go back a little bit to the formation of all this. And you saw the same thing happen with the European Union. As a matter of fact, I'm old enough to remember, if you said that they were forming a European Union, you were a lunatic, stark raving mad, tinfoil hat nut job. until it appeared. And then all of a sudden, well, there's always going to be a European Union. We've been working on this thing for 35 years. Here's all the steps that we took to get there. Well, our first step, and this goes back to 79, Reagan was preaching NAFTA back in during the before the I guess it was it before, yeah, it was before the primaries. I think he had to tone it down because I'm trying to remember based on what I remember. But he was talking about NAFTA in 1979, and he was a big proponent of it. But back then, the Democrats owned the House. They were not going to give it up. You couldn't blast them out. They had owned the House probably, I think, since World War II. So there was just going to be no Republican president getting that through. It just wasn't going to happen. But it started picking up tread under George W. or H.W. Bush, and the entire 1992 election came down to NAFTA. So you had Bush pro NAFTA and how he was going to lead us into this new global economy, or did you want Clinton to do it? And both sides were paired in the exact same talking points. Oh, this is going to be a utopia for us. Prices are going to come down. You're going to be able to invest your capital in these foreign companies, and we're all going to get rich, and this is going to be the best thing's ever been. Well, then, of course, you had Ross Perot. So I'm 21 at the time. I'm on terminal leave. I took leave from my EAS. So if you have leave build up, you can just take it and you're already out of the Marine Corps, but you're not officially out till that day. So I'm going around knocking on doors with my upstairs neighbor. We're knocking on the doors for Perot. Left right paradigm. Well, I don't want to waste my vote. If you vote for Perot, man, Clinton's going to become president. Or you get some Democrat. Well, if you vote for Perot, well, H.W. Bush will be president again, and you don't want that. So I've learned real early the mindset of people of how that kind of thing went down. And of course, Ross Perot was correct. Clinton was able to get NAFTA. The Democrat president was able to get NAFTA through the Democratic House, and that was the first step on this way to what is going to be, well, they're calling it Greater North America now, but back then they call it was North American Union. And we're here. So when Trump, and there's been several steps, Vicente Fox and George Bush, and I can't remember the name of the PM of Canada at the time. They did a lot, and they were really pushing for it back then, but people caught on to it. They were going to build, like you were saying earlier, they were going to build this transnational highway through Texas. And the people in Texas are like, no, you're not doing that. And you can thank Alex Jones, actually, for that. His movie Endgame was partially about that whole situation and the pushback that came from the people of Texas. And that really slowed the process down. But when Trump, the day after he got elected, when he started talking about Canada as a 51st state, we're going to take Greenland, we're going to take Cuba, we're going to do all this stuff. I'm like, this is the Club of Rome plan. This is the multipolar WEF, the whole gambit, and it's this trilateral global governance. And sure enough, man, he is going after that as fast as he can while we're all arguing about all the other stuff. They made major moves towards that.
100%. I mean, what does Cuba have that we're basically blockading and sieging an island nation that was already destitute? What are we gaining from that?
Well, it's routes and resources. So Cuba, when you have a multipolar, the way it'll be set up to kind of lay this out so we can all be on the same sheet of music, you're going to have this greater North America that's going to encompass Canada, the United States, Mexico, Cuba, and Greenland. So think of it as a European Union. And then within the hemisphere, the trilateral model, you'll have the entire North America and South America in its own hemispherical trade pact, its own hemispherical really, actually, there'll be a government above the North American supranational government, and that's the trilateral model. But basically, what it boils down to is that we would be the Germany of the North American Union, like Germany is the EU. They're the main economic partner, the main the largest model or largest population. So that we would be the main country within the North American Union model. But of course, we would be subject to a supranational government like the EU is.
And okay, on the trilateral model, so like I get that you basically how you're gonna segment off like the Americas, Greenland down, etc. And then I'm assuming it's all of Europe down, but like how what would be the other third in that?
Well, that would be Russia, China, Iran, the BRICS that you see forming. That's actually already formed. They'll be one big group along with I'm assuming Indochina, Korea, all that area, and then you're going to have Europe, and I think Africa will be in that third,
Okay, that's what I was
and
gonna
then you'll have the Western Hemisphere.
Wow, I mean, That's insane.
But those three areas will be broken down in a total of 10 groups, like North American Union. You'll have a South American Union, African Union, European Union, BRICS. I don't know what they'll end up calling it. They'll call it something, and then of course you'll have the Middle East tied in there somewhere, and they'll be a part of the. I think that's the European, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I looked at the map, but that's the goal and that's the idea. So you have this governmental structure where you'll still have a United States government, and it'll be as ceremonial as it is today, probably even worse. So there's be, but the main government will be a supranational governing body like the European Union over Greater North America, and then above that you'll have the trilateral government, and then you'll have a world government.
Good Lord.
And Trump is the Illuminati voodoo doll. He's the star quarterback putting the ball in the end zone as fast as he can. And he has right cover to do it. Obama couldn't do this. Biden couldn't do it. And the people that would push back on it or pretend it's not happening because it's Trump, man. It's Trump, man. He's fighting the globalists. He's fighting them, man. He's done beat them. He's defeated them.
It's incredible. I mean, he is the globalist.
Yeah.
He took the damn mask off. To me, my moment, Andy, like the moment where I kind of realized, oh shit, excuse me, where I was like, oh shit, we are in it, was started with like the Elon tweets, or like the X post when they had their little falling out last summer about this time exactly. I was like, all right, man, because that was one of the major things that I was also a big proponent of, to be behind Trump in this past election. And to be fair, right, it wasn't necessarily him that was giving the quote unquote campaign promise on the unveiling of the Epstein, the cabal. I'm not calling it the Epstein list. It's beyond that. I wanted to know who the F, we know who it is, but let's get some names and who's in this cabal, who's running this massive satanic ring, right? And then when he told everybody, if you are pursuing this, I don't want you anymore. Remember that?
Oh yeah. Are you still talking about Epstein? Are you still talking about Epstein, Eamon?
Yeah, when he was sitting at the, I don't know what he was at the, I don't know, situation. I don't know what he was at the,
with Pam Bondi. Yeah.
Yeah. And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, wow, man. A lot, like, you formed a coalition. You had Maha, you had independents, you had libertarians, crypto bros, tech bros, moderate Democrats, moderate Republicans, MAGA, all came together to get you in. Varying, expectations on campaign promises, to be fair. But one commonality, which is shocking to me to this day, is that it was the MAGA base that was pushing to get some arrest on the Epstein stuff. It was the MAGA base primarily pushing it. And look at all these grifters now, Andy. They're the ones that are crapping on everybody that still want justice for those kids and those women. They just say, oh, that girl, she worked for him.
Blame the victims.
Yeah.
If you don't recall, they were blaming the 9/11 victims' families probably by 2005. Fox News, Bill O'Reilly, all of a sudden the first responders, because they wanted some justice. I mean, they were told the air was safe to breathe. They started dying from cancer. They paid off most of the victims' families, but some of them said, look, we don't want the money, because if you took money from the government, you had to sign a release saying that, you weren't going to push for an investigation. That was part of the deal. You took the money and you shut up. Well, some of them said, well, I don't want the money. We want justice for what happened to our family, and we want to know what happened to our family. And a lot of them were getting really vocal, and this was back when 9/11 Truth really hit critical mass, probably around 2006. And Fox News 2006, Sean Hannity, Bill O'Reilly were down to just blaming the victims, calling them names. These 9/11 families, they're just a bunch of conspiracy theorists. I mean, that's how quickly they'll heel turn. So you had those guys that are heel turners. They're all heels or whatever. But now you're seeing it amongst the new digital mainstream media, which is going to be these influencers and stuff like that. And look how fast they heel turned on you. Trump rolls in. Within a couple months, he's already, kind of flouting around, and they're carrying the water for him. But like you said, when the heel turn moment was are you still talking about Epstein? I mean, he just slapped you right in the face. And Hunter Eagleman, Gunner, whoever he is, and Cat Turd and all of them just told you were crazy. And if you don't like Trump, you must be a Democrat. And unfortunately, that's how it works. So yeah, Trump turned heel, and he hadn't looked back, and it's just gotten worse as times went on.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, do you think right now when we talk about like, the Greater America Project, I think you referred to it, or NAU. I mean, currently with Carney, Carney, I mean, I think it's a lot of there's a lot of showmanship going on here.
Mhm.
But, you have Carney basically, he's heel turning as well. And I mean, is it just optics where they're showing a quote unquote, like Carney's showing a quote unquote heel turn? He's a banker, by the way, everybody. He ain't got no experience in politics, but in working with China, is that real? Is that something that's happening? Does that impact the potential of this NAU, or is that
No,
just more theater?
it's kayfabe. Is
Kayfabe?
WWA? Yeah, the
Yeah.
longer this goes on, in times past, there was some kayfabe, but there was always that shift in public opinion, or the shift in demographics of a party that could affect them. I mean, they could get out and on top of them and control them, but today it's all. I'm convinced it's all scripted at this point. It's literally scripted. So regardless of whether Carney says this or Scheinbaum takes a swipe at Trump or blah 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 blah, that's just like being in a wrestling ring. All three of them are down for this North American or greater North America, but they got to give this court historians a story to write of how this had to happen. It's not we've been planning this since the 1970s. It ain't that. This is what happened to make this whole thing come around. So yeah, Trump, Scheinbaum, and Carney, all three will eventually come together and make this thing happen. And of course, it's going to take some type of major shoe to drop for that to happen, but it will. And they will. Now, they might save the finalization for the next administration. I don't know, but it's going to happen, and it'll happen within the next 10 years or earlier.
You know what I think? I I'm starting to think this whole Iran war situation is theater too. I feel like the way it's going, and even Iran's being exceptionally weird here too. Since the
Uh-huh.
ceasefire, exceptionally strange behavior compared to what they were doing and saying prior to. And so I put my tinfoil hat on here, so just mind you. But I'm kind of thinking that they are intentionally, all these players are intentionally trying to crash the global economy, crash the current SWIFT system, crash current U.S. petrol fiat, crash food supply, and they're going to create such a dire situation where this NAU concept will, like as you said, it's Hegelian. They're moving to a synthesis, right, Andy? And like
Mhm.
in my mind, that's what the synthesis is. The synthesis is they're trying to create such an existential crisis where there could, God forbid, but be potential mass loss of life. And I'm not saying this is happening tomorrow. I'm saying this is what I envision that their 5 to 10 year plan is. I mean, Agenda
Mhm.
2030 is right around the corner. If they're really moving towards that, what do you think about that? Do you think that this whole thing is a tool or an instrument to get there? This whole war and all this stuff with the straits.
Well, I'll tell you, my gut had told me that, but then I got to thinking, well, no, surely Iran's not, they don't have a central bank. They are autonomous to a certain degree. They're hooked up with China and Russia. And I'm like, no, I don't think that's correct. But as time has went on, and especially the way this whole thing has played out, I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat as well, and I think I'm going to agree with you on that. Matter of fact, I know I'm going to, because the way the whole thing has happened right now, even though Iran, they're in a position of strength, but they're not. They've got the
Right.
straight. They have shown that they can hit, and they can hit hard. But at the end of the day, if the United States really wanted to, we could we,
Yeah.
we could demoralize. They could do it from the air and force them in a position to actually negotiate a treaty. And with the way Trump's acting, you might like, well, is he demented? Is he crazy? Is he trying to make himself look good? No, I think it's like what you said. I think they're both in on it,
Yeah.
and they're just weaving this whole thing up. And yeah, with the straight close, already there's no turning back from massive pain. It won't be so bad in the United States, but there is going to be some massive famine in other parts of the world. And that's
Agree.
always the goal. Anytime they can kill millions of people, that's great. But they want to up the ante. They want to kill tens, hundreds of millions if they can. And famine's a good way to do it. And I think that you were correct that I think they're all in on it. I've always felt Putin was in on it. I'm never,
I do
always,
too. I don't
yeah,
trust them.
yeah, never fooled by the Russians and Putin, never ever fooled
No.
by them, and never fooled by Xi Jinping. He's definitely down, and he knows they're on the rise. They're going to be the global enforcer once all this is said and done, because they got the people, they got the might, and they've got everything that they need in order to be that. But at the end of the day, they're all controlled by some central source. What is that central source? Is it Masonic? Is it Satan? I mean, what is
Yeah.
it? What I would ask you, what do you think this central source that binds them?
Again, I'll put my tinfoil hat on, and I'll put my faith protection on. I think this is Luciferian, 100%.
Amen.
I think I think it's a great unveiling, and I had a guest on last week that it's a mutual of ours, and I tend to believe that this is a great unveiling. This is the hubris of evil, and it's coming out into the open. And the most insidious part about evil is that it can convince you it's good, and a lot of people are being convinced what's happening is good, and are not thinking of human life. They're not thinking of their neighbor. They're not thinking of their essential just well-being, to advocate for certain crimes. There's a little tiny little speck of a nation that's so insignificant, in the scale, in the great game, if you will, of the world and of like world power, yet has a tremendous amount of it, and has swayed and controls and manipulates like a master puppeteer, arguably the greatest world empire to ever exist in known human history.
Hmm.
So I think this is extremely nefarious, and it's otherworldly, not in an alien sense. I think it's these are we're dealing with potentially, demons. I think this is demonic.
Agreed, and I couldn't have said it better myself. And I agree 100%. Yeah, this is a battle between good and evil, and not the way it's painted by libs of TikTok. It's a battle of good and evil, and they show you some poor transition. I really feel sorry for the whole trans community. They are the biggest victims of mind control and social engineering. When you see somebody like that, man, you should feel sorry for them. It's like, look what they have done to people. Look what they've done to these parents. They've got these parents
Yeah.
convinced that they got to take little Johnny and go get his junk whacked off. They're dressing him like a girl at 4 years old or at 2 years old, and then it becomes kind of like it's fashionable. Hey, I got a trans kid. Look here, here's little here's little Mary. Isn't she pretty? And it's little Johnny. So if you can get people into that kind of mode where you can get them to do that to their child, or fight for their right, I mean, just get vicious, foaming at the mouth to kill their own child. How evil is that you can do that to people's minds, man?
Dude,
And
it's they're creating Neo Babylon, Sodom and Gomorrah. And to be clear, I'm not trying to single out the little country. They're
mm,
just a piece in a great. The U.S. is part of it. China's part of it. China was lifted up by Kissinger and Zbigniew Brzezinski.
mm,
Like China is a construct, and they have, when it comes to democide, they've killed more of their own civilians by government, compared to any other nation, like 2x, 3x. I think the numbers are like 80 million that they've killed in the name
oh
of
yeah,
government.
yeah, they don't have any problem doing that. No, they're just as vicious, if not more vicious than anybody else. But the thing they
Exactly.
have is they got the bodies, man.
Yeah.
And yeah, they have the bodies, and they are trained like the 1950s military, United States military. That was their goal, and they've done it. So that
Yeah.
is a very formidable foe for the entire globe. And I think eventually that, like I said, China will be the enforcement arm. And I do think
Mhm.
that Satan's running this entire whole thing, is orchestrating the entire thing from the top down. And a lot of these leaders are literally possessed. Tony Blair, if you remember him, he was the
Yeah.
PM of the UK. Possessed, cats possessed. Guarantee you, Tony Blair is possessed. Bill Clinton possessed. Donald Trump is the epitome of being possessed. I'm convinced that he is an undead golem, and they keep him animated with some kind of ritual, Twilight language. They whisper in his ear, and he's like, and he comes to life. So
Did you see that thing with like Maria? I think Maria Abramovich, where there's like this like interview with her in the car, and she's like,
yes.
"Yeah, Donald Trump is one of our greatest warlocks."
Well, she says and this is, you got the words that she uses, because a person like that does not misspeak. And she says he is the magician of
The magician.
the highest order. So
Yeah.
what does that tell you? She didn't say he's a magician of
Yeah.
an order. You know, he's the highest magician of the highest order. And I have no doubt about that at all. Trump is a master agent of chaos. I've never seen anything like it. I got, the hats have to come off for that. And I tell you who else is somebody is like that is Bobby Kennedy, because I got fooled by
Dude,
Bobby, because this is my turn. This is my turn to confess my sins
go
of
ahead. Go
getting.
ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. I got totally roped in. And to give myself a little bit of credit, Bobby's never served in any type of office. And you got to understand that I grew up in the 70s during the whole church committee stuff. There was just tons for as little 3 networks that you had. Every weekend there was some special about Kennedy during that time. Did the government kill Kennedy? Blah, 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 blah. So I grew up that whole thing. I was just a really big Kennedy fanboy. And I just grew up that way. And that's just how it was. And so here comes Bobby Kennedy, and he comes along and he gives these heartfelt speeches and all the stuff. And the guy is just, really intelligent dude, knows his stuff. He's out here fighting with the children's health defense, all this stuff. I'm like, man, this guy's great, man. And he's going to run for president. I get to vote for a Kennedy. I mean, this is like my inner child. I'm gonna vote for a Kennedy. I'm gonna vote for a Kennedy. And this dude, when he got hooked up with Trump, I ignored it. I was like, okay, he's going to get in there and he's going to do good. This is our only hope, because I had no hope for Trump at all. But I'm like, Kennedy, man, he's going to get in there and he's going to do something. And when he had that confirmation hearing, bruh, it was just like he turned heel just like that. And then he'll turn around and he will kick Maha directly in the stomach as hard as he can. And then he'll come right back out the next day and, well, we've got to do something about this and we got to do something about that. It's like, dude, you just kicked me in the nuts, bro. And then you're going to come out here and talk to me in that fashion, like it didn't happen. And you're going to do something else about it. And I think he is a very subversive individual. There's something wrong with him. I'm convinced he's a serial killer. His obsession with dead animals and stuff like that. I'm convinced Bobby Kennedy. Well, this is my opinion. I don't.
I know.
Yeah. My opinion is that I think there's a good chance that he's like he's a Jeffrey Dahmer.
He's not a good Dexter. He's not Dexter.
No, he's not a Dexter. I'm convinced he's a Jeffrey Dahmer. And so I got fooled. So no matter how long you've been doing this, somebody's going to come along and they're going to get you. And Bobby Kennedy, I'm right here, hook, line, and sinker. I bought the whole thing, man.
Dude, we got rolled with everybody. We got rolled with Tulsi. I got rolled, and I won't even say some expletives of how I feel, but Kash Patel got my ass hard, dude. I was
he got a lot of people.
Dude, he got me so good, man. So good. And then that little 60-minute interview where it looks like there's like literally like, so they're facing the camera off angle and they're facing the interviewer, and it feels like off right here, there's just guns to their heads, him and Bongino. Like there's just like high caliber, like I don't know, Desert Eagles just sitting behind their heads, and their eyes are wide. They look terrified. And when I saw that, I was like, oh shit, they got him. And then right after that, obviously what Bongino said with like, he killed himself. He killed himself. I was like, oh my God, here we go. I was like, we got. I ignored it though. I ignored everything until late May of 25. And then it was just enough. I couldn't do that. I couldn't do it anymore. And I just hope, those that are listening, those that are on the fence, get off the damn fence. Don't play the game anymore. Like join critical thought, the critical thinking society that is slowly growing. And if we get to just even a small minority, 10, 15% of the national population, I'm not saying we win and it's all over and we're going to take the country back, but their plans will be delayed. They will have to think of another angle because they got to keep people fully asleep. Or Andy, and maybe we can close with this. If we wake up, do we have a chance? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we have a chance, but people have to look at the war that they've been given, not the war that they want. So the war we've been given is, I can tell you right now that Washington, D.C. is off limits. You can forget infiltrating the Republican Party, the Democrat Party, try to fight from within and try to take over the federal government. You can just forget it. They will not let you do it. And I can tell you that from personal experience. I actually know elected officials that will say things very matter of factly. And even before they had the electronic voting, they would have a person on the left and a person on the right running. If either one of them got overtaken by like an insurgent, they would back the establishment candidate in blue. Yeah. So in other words, if the red guy, say it's a red seat and the red guy got overtaken, they would back the other guy. So that they're going to win no matter what. You're never going to penetrate Washington. So the battle that we have is going to be local, countywide, and it very well could be statewide. And people are like, well, man, what are you going to do with the state? And my question to you is, if you can't take your county government and you can't take your state government, how on earth do you think you're going to take Washington, D.C.? You can't do it. They're insolvent. They're $40 trillion in debt. They're entrenched. They got the deep state all throughout the whole thing. You have foreign governments entrenched, Chinese spies, Israeli spies. Now Israel's going to be just mixed right up with them. So you can just forget it. So yeah, the solution is going to be if you can get enough people awake in your local area. And AI data centers, perfect example of how the left and right can come together. Hey, our groceries are too expensive. This is just ridiculous. We are suffering this. It doesn't matter what, whether you have a nose ring and I wear a red hat, that doesn't matter. We're both paying for these groceries. We're both going to be victims of these AI data centers where all our power bills are going to go up. We're not going to have access to water. They're going to tell us that we couldn't shower but once a week. I mean, that's actually happening in Arizona. You can only shower once a week because of the data center. So if you can get on a local level and take over your county and hopefully take over your state, that's when you can start to cook with gas. Because if you try to act like, well, we're going to have a revolution, well, what's a bunch of angry mobs going to do other than just get mowed down, run down like dogs by organized, military? But if you have control of the state, well, hey, that's a whole different ballgame. Hey, we already got a government. We have resource. We have this. We have that. We have all these plans in place. We have all this stuff to where we can make it we can have auto determination of the state and survive. So to be as frank as I can be, the United States of America is no longer. It hadn't been. It's gone. It literally is. I hate to say it. I served the United States Marine Corps, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm a North Carolinian at this point. It's North Carolina only. I'm sorry. I'd like to bring South Carolina with me. That'd be great. You can forget Virginia at this point, I guess, but maybe I don't know whoever wants to come along. But at this point, I'm a North Carolinian, and that seems to be the only way out as a self-governing population.
I fully agree with you. I've actually started thinking the same way about here in Colorado. I'm actually, for the first time in my life, researching everybody. I'm checking where I can find it, right? I don't have all the sources, but I'm doing my best to see where they're getting their money from, what their histories are. And yeah, that's how we win back at the ground level and work our way forward from there. I don't think it's a pipe dream to ever get full control over the federal level, but if you can influence your state, I totally agree with that, Andy. And so thank you very much for your time, Andy. I appreciate you, man. I hope we could do one of these again. That was fun. I'm sorry I was a little tired from work today, so I started a little tarded here at the beginning, but I feel like we picked it up pretty well, and I appreciate your insights, man. So everybody, please make sure you go and follow Andy here at Andy_Buksterlin, BUKSTERLIN on X. Make sure you give me a follow there as well at MNBFY pod on X, and please sub, like, and comment on this video, and check out the other videos and interviews we've done. I've done some great interviews with some other really intelligent folks, and my goal here is to have people like Andy, people that love their country, that are strong-willed and good-willed, and just really care about taking this country back one step at a time and not feeding into this garbage left-right game that they have us all stuck in. So, Andy, thank you again, and hope you have a great evening, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure.
God bless. All right, everyone. Thank you. Catch you on the next one.